Good evening, I'm Robbie Alampay. The big stories tonight. At least 14 people were killed after twin bombings rocked Holosulu earlier today. The municipality of Jolo has declared a total lockdown to pave the way for an investigation. Malacanang says calls for a revolutionary government do not stand a chance under the Duterte administration. Some senators are also dismissing the proposal as ill-timed and unnecessary. The House of Representatives has ratified the Bayanihan to recover as one bill, but not without some lawmakers taking a swipe at their Senate counterparts. The Department of Health says coronavirus deaths in the Philippines have passed the 3,000 mark. That's as the country awaits the much-desired COVID-19 vaccine. Citing budget constraints, the DOH says clinical trials for Japanese drug Avigan have been pushed back to September. And how much would you pay to own one of Mahatma Gandhi's iconic pairs of glasses? Someone in Britain just shelled out 260,000 pounds. That's around 340,000 US dollars for the memorabilia. Let's start with the explosion in Holosulu after two roadside bombings killed 14 individuals this afternoon. The town has now been placed under lockdown. Authorities will conduct an investigation. Ryan Ang with the details.
Before 12 noon today, an explosion rocked the vicinity of Paradise Food Plaza along Cervantes Street, Barangay Walled City, Holosulu. Initial reports say the explosion came from a motorcycle rigged with IED that was parked near a military truck.
Paalis na yung tropa na galing sila ng marketing, biglang may nagpark na motorcycle. And then nung pagbaba nung dalawang passengers, yun na, sumabog na. Vehicle borne na na IED yun. Bali yung pinark yung motorcycle and then yun ang pinasabog. Maraming casualties.
An hour later, while investigators are inspecting the crime scene, another explosion followed on the opposite road, just 100 meters from the first blast site.
Ay, yung pangalawang pagsabog kasi may isang nakaabaya na female and then siyempre very suspicious yung kilos niya. Sinita siya nung isang sundalo natin and then suddenly sumabog.
As of 7 in the evening, 14 were killed in the twin blast, including 7 soldiers, 6 civilians, and 1 police officer, while 75 others were wounded. Jolo Mayor Kirkantan has ordered for a total lockdown following the bombings. Entry to and exit from the town will be prohibited pending the results of the investigation. The palace has condemned the incident in Jolo and has called on the residents to stay vigilant. Meanwhile, the military said that they are on high alert following the twin blast and that they are still determining the details of the explosion. For its part, Philippine National Police Chief General Archie Gamboa has already directed the Police Regional Office in the Bangsamoro region to secure the area, expedite its probe, and make all perpetrators accountable. The Philippine Coast Guard has declared a red alert in the entire region of southwestern Mindanao, including Zamboanga, Basilan, Sulu, and Tawi-Tawi, while investigation is ongoing. Jolo Bishop Charlie Inson has asked for prayers for the bombing victims. For News 5, Ryan Ang, We Are One News.
Calls for a revolutionary government will not be getting any support from the Duterte administration. That's according to Palace spokesman Harry Roque, after a group of President Duterte supporters urged the chief executive to run a revolutionary government for the remainder of his term. Maricel Halili reports.
Malacanang insists that a revolutionary government under President Duterte is out of the picture, especially as the country continues to grapple with COVID-19 crisis. This following the appeal of the Mayor Rodrigo Roa Duterte National Executive Coordinating Committee, a group of the chief executive supporters to declare a revolutionary government. In an assembly on Saturday, the group called for a revolutionary government for a period not exceeding June 30, 2022 or until the end of President Duterte's term. They want the chief executive to lead a revolution and usher in a new constitution. But Palace spokesperson Harry Roque was quick to turn it down, stressing that it is not the priority of the administration, especially in the middle of the pandemic.
It does not enjoy any support po from government right now. It is a private initiative, but the private individuals can express freely their views. as part of freedom of speech.
Some government officials find the appeal ridiculous at the time of a global health crisis. Senate President Tito Soto has likened a revolutionary government to a rudderless ship of state, launched without a compass nor an agreed destination. Senator Riza Ontiveros, meanwhile, said the move should not be taken seriously, describing it as another distraction from the real crisis. Senator Sherwin Gatchalian has branded the proposal as ill-timed and unnecessary. He added that such form of government will likely erode the system of checks and balances.
Babalik ako doon sa pangalan ng grupo, Mayor Rodrigo Duterte National Executive Council. No? Ang initial reaction ko ay itong grupo na ito ay gustong mapalapit sa ating Pangulo at gustong sumipsip sa ating Pangulo.
Asked if the calls to declare a revolutionary government amounts to inciting to sedition or a terror act, Justice Secretary Minardo Guevara withheld his comment. He says the issue is more political than legal. For now, Malacanang has no plans of filing charges against the group.
Consistent po ang ating hukuman pagdating sa mga desisyon nila at ukol po sa karapatan ng malayang pamamahayag. Kinakailangan meron pong clear and present danger para masupil po yung ganyang pananalita.
The Philippine National Police also urges the public not to be distracted amid the fight against pandemic, noting that it will never support any move to establish a revolutionary government. For News 5, Maricel Halili, We Are One News.
President Duterte will address the nation tonight from Davao City. Palace spokesman Harry Roque says the chief executive will give updates on the country's COVID-19 response. In his Laging Handa briefing today, Roque also apologized to the president for saying his boss was under perpetual isolation. Roque said it was the wrong choice of words when asked about the president's health condition last week.
Pero what I meant only was that the Presidential Security Group has been doing a good job at ensuring that there is social distancing between anyone who wants to talk to the president. No? Pasensya po.
Joint Task Force COVID Shield is reporting a 49% drop in crime incidents during the 160-day community quarantine period. The JTF COVID Shield Commander Guillermo Eleazar says the biggest decline was seen in the cases of carnapping of motorcycles and motor vehicles, theft and robbery, which all registered more than a 60% reduction. Meanwhile, cases of murder went down by 25%, homicide cases by 26%, physical injury cases went down by 39%, while rape cases went down by 27%. To maintain the low crime rate, the JTF COVID Shield is now trying to identify and analyze all anti-crime best practices amid the COVID-19 pandemic. We'll pause for a short break, but when the big story returns, the lower house has ratified the BICAM-approved Bayanihan to Recover as One bill. Some lawmakers are taking the time to score their Senate counterpart, saying it's not personal gains that pushed them to greenlight the measure. And in an attempt to curb vehicular accidents along EDSA, the MMDA has started installing new metal bollards in the major thoroughfare. More on that when the big story returns. I'm Robbie Alampay. You're watching The Big Story. The 165 billion peso Bayanihan to recover as one bill now only needs President Duterte's signature to become law. But some House and Senate lawmakers are not yet done bickering in the background. Ria Fernandez tells us why in this report.
The House of Representatives has ratified the BICAM-approved Bayanihan to recover as one bill. Lawmakers voted via viva voce, where those who favored the measure ruled. This means Bayanihan 2 is now pending for the president's signature for it to become a law. The measure grants 165 billion pesos to boost the country's COVID-19 response. President Duterte has time and again urged lawmakers to expedite Bayanihan 2's passage. But before ratifying the measure, some House lawmakers could not help but clap back at senators. That's after Senator Mig Zubiri was heard during their previous session saying that their intent in pushing the bill, also known as Bayanihan 2, was pure advocacy.
To insinuate that Representatives Villafuerte Jr., C. Alvarado, Yap, Abu, Cuwa, Haresco Jr., Palmatu, Garin, and Minority Member Kimbo have personal gains to push for is not only preposterous, but downright unparliamentary and not befitting of a member of a co-equal body.
Deputy Speaker El Rey Villafuerte, who led the House contingent to the BICAM, also denied the insinuation of enjoying personal gains.
Huwag naman nilang maliitin at masamain ang mga congressman dahil ang katotohanan po, karamihan po ng mga senador galing rin pong kongres yan.
Moreover, Villafuerte stressed that their version was more holistic than the Senate's, just like when they added the 10 billion pesos budget for tourism infrastructure, which was later stricken out in the BICAM. For Surigao del Norte Representative Ace Barbers, it would have helped tourist destinations to level up, like Siargao in their province, if this provision was included.
It will create a cycle of life and economic activity on its own. Make it larger and you can just imagine the magnitude of activity it will create.
Despite the clash, House lawmakers thanked Senator Pia Cayetano, a former colleague and sister of House Speaker Alan Cayetano, for standing up on their behalf. To end the bickering, Villafuerte challenged Solons from the upper chamber to release their video and transcripts during their BICAM meetings. For News 5, Ria Fernandez, We Are One News.
More than 1,000 beneficiaries of Quezon City's local social amelioration program flocked to the Quirino Elementary School to claim their cash aid. Each beneficiary from 9 identified barangays received 4,000 pesos in financial assistance. The city government says only those who were not able to receive cash subsidies from the Social Welfare Department are qualified for their program. Payout schedules have already been set until September 7. And these are the other big stories today. Former U.S. Marine Joseph Pemberton, who was found guilty of killing Filipino transgender woman Jennifer Laude in 2014, has withdrawn his appeal before the Supreme Court. That means Pemberton is accepting the 2015 trial court decision sentencing him to 10 years in prison over homicide. The Supreme Court notice issued today shows that he filed a motion for leave to withdraw his petition last June 2. The case is now deemed closed. The Bicameral Commission on Appointments has confirmed the appointment of 15 senior officers in the Armed Forces of the Philippines. These include Southern Luzon Command Chief Antonio Parlade Jr. and AFP spokesperson Edgardo Arevalo. The Commission on Appointments Committee on National Defense approved the recommendation of the AFP officers' confirmation in a hybrid hearing. The offices of the Solicitor General has asked the Supreme Court to cancel oral arguments on the Anti-Terror Act slated for September. Solicitor General Jose Calida, who represents President Duterte and other high-ranking government officials, cites logical restrictions and health threats posed by the COVID-19 pandemic. To date, at least 29 petitions have been filed before the High Tribunal questioning the constitutionality of the measure. Concrete barriers out, metal bollards in. The Metropolitan Manila Development Authority is intensifying its efforts to reduce vehicular accidents along the EDSA busway. Gerard de la Peña with the details.
This SUV was severely damaged after hitting the concrete barriers that serve as a divider between the EDSA busway and the private vehicle lane at the Shaw Boulevard Tunnel around 4 a.m. Luckily, no one was hurt. At around 1 p.m., another SUV hit one of the concrete barriers, which caused a major traffic jam. The MMDA says around 100 concrete barriers have been destroyed due to vehicular accidents. With this, the MMDA is replacing concrete barriers with metal bollards at the northbound lane in the Shaw Boulevard Tunnel. EDSA Traffic Manager Bong Nebria says a private firm donated 6,000 bollards, which will be installed in choke points such as tunnels and flyovers.
So we try to maximize the space for the buses and for the private vehicles. So mas maganda kung minimal lang yung median lane nila.
The use of bollards is also meant to reduce accidents at the main thoroughfare.
Pag nabunggo, pag na-dislocate, napupunta sa private lanes, may mga tinatamaan na private vehicles. The bollards are bolted on the ground. So ito, pag binangga mo, hindi basta tumitilapon to.
The MMDA said the concrete barriers will be placed at bus stops as well as other portions of EDSA. Bollards have also been used to separate the bike lane along East Avenue in Quezon City. This is part of what the Transportation Department refers to as the hospital loop, which aims to keep biking healthcare workers safe when going to and from hospitals. But the DPWH notes, this is not yet the final look of bike lanes yet.
DOTR and DPWH are actually coming up with a standard bike lane guidelines, and hopefully this will be done before the end of the month. No? So the designs that will be included therein would be in accordance with the international standards.
Meanwhile, more than 1,300 traditional jeepneys in Metro Manila have been given the green light to operate again. The LTFRB says, starting Wednesday, the additional jeepney units may traverse 23 more routes across NCR. Operators are required to obtain QR codes from the LTFRB. Over 13,000 out of the 74,000 traditional jeepneys will be plying the roads on Wednesday. Despite this, Transport Group Piston urges the government to allow all jeepney drivers to resume operations soon. For News 5, Gerard de la Peña, We Are One News.
The House of Representatives has approved the franchise bid of Dito Telecommunity on its third and final reading. Voting 240 to 7, the lower chamber has moved to grant the country's third telco a 25-year legislative franchise. On August 14, recall, Dennis Uy stepped down as president of Dito CME Holdings. He will remain as chairman and CEO of the Davao-owned consortium. A day after the fifth State of the Nation address of President Duterte, Dito had vowed to expedite the rollout of its network and complete it by March 2021. This after the chief executive threatened to shut down Smart Telecommunications and Globe Telecoms if they fail to improve services by the end of the year. Coming up on the big story, the Health Department says clinical trials for Japanese drug Avigan have been pushed back to September. That's on the back of budget constraints, among others. And one of Mahatma Gandhi's iconic pairs of glasses has been sold for thousands of US dollars. A glimpse into the memorabilia when the big story returns. This is the big story. I'm Robbie Alampay. The DOH is clarifying the clinical trials for possible vaccines against COVID-19 have yet to start in the country. The agency is also defending its chief on his latest controversial remark. Romel Lopez has details.
The Health Department says clinical trials for the anti-flu medication Avigan had been pushed back to September at the earliest. Health Undersecretary Maria Rosario Vergari says the budget for the 9-month clinical trials for the Japanese drug has yet to be approved. This means there is no vaccine currently undergoing clinical tests in the country.
Yung ating government, no, para kung saan magkano yung talagang budget for this trial. Pangalawa, meron kasing ina-undergo ng mga ethics committee approval ang ating mga ospital na kasali dito. So we know that there are 4 hospitals na kasali. Ito yung PGH, yung Dr. Jose N. Rodriguez Memorial Hospital, Santa Ana Hospital, and Quirino Memorial Medical Center.
Recall that the Japanese government sent Avigan tablets which are meant to be tested on 100 patients in the Philippines. Selected sites for clinical trials are the Philippine General Hospital, Santa Ana Hospital, Dr. Jose N. Rodriguez Memorial Hospital, and Quirino Memorial Center. Meanwhile, trials for Remdesivir and Interferon have been suspended for the same reason. Following the recommendations of some experts, the DOH is now pushing that the phase 4 of any potential vaccine be waived to make it available right away. But it assures the public that enough safeguards will be in place.
Nagawa na ito dati, no? Hindi ito bago. This accelerated process has been done already in various parts of the world para sa Ebola and para dun sa meningitis na vaccine. So hindi ito bago. Nung tayo ay nagpanukala nito, kasama natin ang Department of Science and Technology, kasama natin ang Food and Drug Administration, pinag-aralang mabuti yan, ano?
As long as without the vaccine, the DOH says it shares the view of the World Health Organization that the health crisis might last up to 2 years. The Health Department, meanwhile, is on the defense yet again after its chief issued a controversial statement. Secretary Francisco Duque has been in hot water anew for branding the COVID-19 crisis as a blessing in disguise. The DOH clarified Duque has no bad intention at all. He would just want to highlight the pressing concern of having a universal health care in the country during these trying times.
Ang nagpupush talaga po ng major reform sa bawat bansa in every health system is a trigger, and our trigger now is the pandemic situation. So pakita po natin, nabubuo yung mga healthcare provider networks natin na nakasaad sa Universal Healthcare Law. So ito po yung ibig sabihin ng ating Secretary of Health. He did not mean anything that he will offend anybody.
For News 5, Romel Lopez. We are One News.
COVID-19 cases in the country now number more than 194,000. This as the Health Department is reporting more than 4,600 new COVID-19 cases over the past 24 hours. Of that number, 59,200 are active. COVID-19 deaths have meanwhile breached the 3,000 mark with 13 new fatalities recorded over the past 24 hours. More than 720 new recoveries were reported today. That pushes the total tally to 132,000. Let's take a quick look at some of the world's biggest stories. South Korea's intelligence agency believes that Kim Yo-jong, the sister of North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, is serving as his de facto second-in-command. Although not necessarily designated as his successor, Seoul claims that Yo-jong is helping to run the regime. The statement comes after various reports state that Jong-un has fallen into coma. U.S. President Donald Trump is hailing Food and Drug Administration's authorization to use blood plasma from recovered patients as coronavirus treatment. This comes a day after Trump accused the FDA of impeding the rollout of vaccines and therapeutics for political reasons. The agency cited early evidence suggesting that blood plasma can bring down mortality and improve the health of patients. Trump says the treatment could reduce COVID-19 deaths by as much as 35%. An explosion ripped through a portion of the Arab gas pipeline system in Syria, causing a power blackout. Syrian authorities claim a terrorist attack was behind the explosion, and they released footage of a large fire northwest of the capital, Damascus. The country's Ministry of Petroleum and Mineral Resources say the pipeline feeds power stations in the south. State news agency, meanwhile, reports that power has gradually started being restored to affected provinces. A pair of eyeglasses found hanging out of a letterbox has been sold for more than 260,000 pounds or around 340,000 US dollars. The gold-colored wire spectacles belonged to India's independence hero Mahatma Gandhi. They were initially thought to be worth between 13 to 26,000 US dollars. Eventually, they attracted bids from around the world within just 24 hours of being listed online. The glasses were sold weeks after an envelope containing them was left hanging out of an auction house's letterbox. And that wraps up today's big story. Catch us again tomorrow, 8 p.m. on Signal Channels 8 and 250. Please like our Facebook page, One News. For more in-depth analysis, you can visit our webpage, onenews.ph. You can also catch One News on the Signal Play app. Register for a free account now at signalplay.com and stream One News live anytime, anywhere. I'm Robbie Alampay and we are One News. Good evening.